Hello, this is Bryan Cranston, Walter White on Breaking Bad, and also the director of this episode 301. Who else do we have?
I'm Skip Macdonald. I'm the editor from this episode.
And I'm Aaron Paul.
And Dave Porter, the composer for the series.
And in Albuquerque, we have
Anna Gunn, who plays Skylar White.
And Mike Slovis, who's the director of photography.
Yeah.
Well, this is a very interesting episode. The beginning of our third season. In fact, when you hear 301, it means third season, first episode. This is out in a rural area of Albuquerque, New Mexico, where we shoot our show. And we found this deserted town. And the brilliance of our writing staff creating this interesting and compelling quandary of what are these people doing.
Also, Bryan, we ought to talk a little bit about the color, because one of the things that you and Vince and myself talked about was how do we open this season in a striking way that people will know that we're in for something exciting and something different.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, we anticipated to have a very hot day. It was August, and so we anticipated it would be hot and there would be sweat, and instead we had rain. So a television schedule means you shoot regardless, and so we had to figure that out. And of course, Michael Slovis, who's brilliant as our director of photography, was able to give these shots that have minimal amounts of sun and make it look like a very hot day.
Oh.
What kind of
And
filters?
we had so much to. This is a straw filter over everything. We decided to go with this golden yellow for everything that happens in Mexico before they come across the border.
Mm-hmm.
And here comes...
And Bryan, we should talk about the fact that we had 3 units going on this day. We had so much to do.
Yeah.
3 units?
We had 3 units going on this day.
Our introduction to our cousins, Daniel and Luis.
A composer's dream, 2 actors that don't talk. leaving lots of airspace for music here. We had the luxury here. We use music very sparingly on the show, but when we do use it, we try to make the most of it. And for these guys, had the luxury of creating a palette of sounds that we could reintroduce with them throughout this season.
It's, oh God, the way the music builds up to it's just brilliant, I think. I love it.
Yeah, it's so great.
Yeah, and the 2 characters that don't talk, they're great for the editor because you get to work with their faces and their looks and make them creepy and scary like they are.
Now, the ritual here that you're seeing, Santa Muerte, is a real thing. This is there are well over 1 million followers of this deity. And the uniqueness about this is that you may pray for someone to get well or to someone to fall ill. They make no judgment. And so that's what our cousins are doing here. They're praying to be guided toward finding a person that they want to eliminate walking the earth. And it happens to be that man.
Now, it could be also wishing good on people as well, right?
Yeah,
it's wishing good.
They make no judgment on it.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. Were you not listening? When
No,
I was saying?
I whenever you speak, Bryan, I kind of like tune out. And then I was trying to tune back in right when you're finishing, and so...
Amazing resemblance in that picture, by the way.
Yeah.
Dozens of reports of what appears to be a crashed aircraft, possibly 2 aircraft on
This episode, our first of the third season again, picks up just not too long after the end of our second season finale, which of course was the midair collision. Ashley Banfield happens to be a cousin of our executive producer, Michelle McLaren, and it was great to get her because it lent some credence to the severity of this, that it became more of a national and possibly international news.
Yeah, and we actually have a lot of surprise guests on this episode.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't wait to
My
see
real
them.
wife is right there.
Right there.
Hey!
That's my wife, Robin Dearden.
She's amazing.
And this was a real apartment fire that happened in Albuquerque, and so we got the footage from the station, and then we planted Robin in front of it so that it looks like it was part of the debris field.
Take place in a system with so many safeguards.
That the collision which brought down
My daughter Taylor is also in this episode, and she does a terrific job. You'll see her soon.
Oklahoma City today, as the FAA confirmed it was in.
And this sequence as an editor was a challenge because we had so much going on and we had to condense it down into a short period of time. So we did a lot of stuff with the overlapping and just to really make it chaotic kind of.
Yeah.
Margolis recently returned to work after a 5-week absence, which was due to.
It was necessary to have all these different angles on it because we needed to feel that it was bigger than just a local incident. It needed to have that scope.
Had a long history of substance abuse, and friends of the family say the death of his only child hit Margolis particularly hard. Coming as it did little more than a month before, many are questioning the timing of his return to work and are wondering how much blame truly lies with those who let this grieving father.
Now, in reminiscent to our pilot episode, we find Walt in the backyard.
You notice that book of matches is Saul Goodman's face. Better call Saul.
Saul good, man.
Saul Goodman.
Coming up here is a sequence that was a stunt, and it was difficult to pull together, primarily because it involves fire, and there are all kinds of regulations and restrictions that when dealing with fire and accidents that they have to be careful of. So if you notice on one of these takes that I have to wear actually fire protecting gloves that make my hand look like some kind of diseased gigantor. But
Gigantor.
if you'll look right coming up here, I'm wearing them now.
Yeah.
You can't really tell, not in this shot, but you can't tell. So, and then we have the explosion. So there's Saul.
I love it.
That's a great shot.
I'm wearing them now. The big fat hands.
Big fat hands.
Big fat hands. So here he was like, he feels so guilty and remorseful that he doesn't want to have anything to do with this dirty money. Then he realizes, what am I doing? This is crazy. So now I had fire protectant on my arm underneath the robe. And it kept on.
Did you have fire protectant tighty whities?
Yes, I did. Now, as I'm trying to get the fire out, I realized that the gloves were flopping over and I had to put them underwater so that the camera wouldn't see the floppy hands, because those gloves were kind of ruined in that sense.
Yep.
Usually open with "so sorry we're here."
But also at the very end with our big explosion, one of the cameras got burned up in the fire. So when the barbecue lights, we had stolen a piece from that camera to use it to ignite the fire because that didn't exist. So we used it there and also to start the fire at the end.
Here's one of our guest stars for the season, Julie Dretson, who is a terrific actor, and
Has he moved out?
her new lawyer.
We're in the process of moving him out. Yeah, today, hopefully. And in the meantime, my son and my daughter and I are staying with my sister.
So
One of how many kids that we've used in our show?
Yeah.
We keep changing out the children.
27, yes, 27.
We keep having to fire them.
Rotating
and that's
babies.
tough. That's tough when you have them. Please bring the baby in. It's just not working. You have to leave.
You're not producing what
Yeah.
we need.
Love the ribbons you guys all wore in this episode.
Yeah.
Wayfair 515.
Yeah.
Apparently even, parts of bodies. And so I certainly couldn't bring myself to.
so awful.
I know. Anyway, I was certainly.
Julie is the wife of one of our writers, and Sam, and we didn't know it I didn't know it at the time when I was looking at the audition tapes, and the biggest compliment I can give to her is that it didn't matter. I didn't know it, and she was the pick that we we chose, that we all unanimously said she has that right amount of professionalism and concern and compassion, and yet there's a reservedness to her that makes it really believable as an attorney.
She was really lovely to work with.
Maybe 15 years on it.
What about
And Skylar carefully choosing her words, trying not to say too much.
your husband's financial situation?
Now here's an example where you notice there is no music. And rightfully so. You know what I mean? But let me ask you a question, though, Dave. Do you look at this and you go, absolutely, no music should go here? Or how do you do that?
Well, we're far enough along in this show that we've set the precedent that we don't do music in a scene like this. Maybe another show would.
You mean a private scene with two characters talking in it?
Well, almost never. And that's just something that works for our show. In part, we have the luxury of doing that because our actors and our writers are so excellent. Often you have to use music to help a scene that might not work as well as you might like, but that almost never happens here. Oh, I'm sorry, never happens here.
Nice catch.
Yeah, until one of the actors goes, "When did it happen?"
That was brilliantly staged. Whoever directed this episode did a really lovely job on that setup right there, to see Hank's reflection in it. You know, I must say that I enjoy directing, but I consider myself a neophyte to it. And when I get on set, I don't try to take over someone else's job. Basically, my working with Michael Slovis, he's helped me in numerous times. And basically, what I try to do is to just relay to Michael what my hope is, what kind of sentimentality at any given moment should be, and then he just goes to work and creates it for me, not only with the lighting but with tremendous assistance on placement of the camera. And it just you're a gem to work with, my friend.
Well, thanks, but that's what we talk about all the time when we work together, right? We talk about what's the story at this point.
Yeah.
What are we trying to say with this shot within this scene?
Yeah.
Bryan, this is your second directing episode for us, right? Did you have a different experience this time than the first time?
Yeah, it's always different. The 201 was my first, and then here, and the actors are well into their characters by now, and you don't really have to discuss character. They come in loaded for what they would do or what they wouldn't do. It's a lot of fun. It is a lot of work, I must say.
No heavy lifting. I got it. It's okay.
I'm impressed, though, Bryan, watching you, behind the monitor and watching the setup of something, and then switching hats and then putting yourself right into the scene. And
thank you.
Yeah.
I think in episodic, there's a tremendous advantage, Bryan, to knowing the show and knowing the culture of the show. Therefore, there's a shorthand in how you're going to tell the story. If you bring in a director that has never done the show before, there's a certain amount of education period that you have to go through. But since you know the show so well, we really pretty much go directly to where we have to be.
And I loved what you wore. Was it the first time you directed? Was it the first day that you had a monocle on? And
Oh my God!
like a whip.
I dressed up like Eric von Stroheim with a monocle and a cigarette holder. Yeah, it's fun just to kind of break. And I wanted this shot. I wanted the tears of our star here to be behind him. He's feeling this emotion of crying, and yet nothing's moving in his body, nothing's going on. He's trying to figure himself out. This is a nice little thing we were able to pull out.
You want another waffle?
It's actually a spa at what is now the Hard Rock Casino.
Yeah, where we shot the rehabilitation center. And the guest star, Jerry Burns, did a fantastic job there. Really believable work.
There's one of our sweet babies.
Pass along the correct contact information. I mean, you certainly can always reach me on my cell. I've always got.
Bryan, you should talk a little bit about the planning, because you only get the babies on the set for how long?
Yeah, we have. There's a tremendous restriction to working with babies, and 20 minutes at a time that they're allowed to be on the set, and then they must be taken away. So on shots like that, we time it out as carefully as possible, shoot the baby, and then put him down so that now when we're shooting shots like this, the real baby is not even there. So we take advantage of that and those restrictions we have to do quickly.
And we might even have to wait a while. They might say, you can't do that other shot because we don't get a new baby for another 20 minutes or an hour or whatever.
Right. It does put some restrictions on us shooting, but, you know, those laws are in place for very good reasons, and we abide by them, of course.